Some men just want to watch the world burn.
I have a message for my fellow plutocrats and zillionaires, and for anyone who lives in a gated bubble world. Wake up. Wake up. It cannot last. Because if we do not do something to fix the glaring economic inequities in our society, the pitchforks will come for us. For no free and open society can long sustain this kind of rising economic inequality. It has never happened. There are no examples. You show me a highly unequal society and I will show you a police state or an uprising. The pitchforks will come for us if we do not address this. It's not a matter of if, it's when. And it will be terrible when they come for everyone, but particularly for people like us plutocrats. I know I must sound like some liberal do-gooder. I'm not. I'm not making a moral argument that economic inequality is wrong. What I'm arguing is that rising economic inequality is stupid and ultimately self-defeating. Rising inequality doesn't just increase our risks from pitchforks, but it's also terrible for business too.
Yes, the pitchforks are indeed coming. The anger is on both sides of the electorate, and it's growing by the day. The message you just heard should be resonating loudly in the circles of the plutocrats. It should be a message that makes them change course and do what's in the best interest of all citizens, as opposed to only their own. Instead, they resist the tidal wave of frustration and anger that comes from the middle class and the working poor. They're concerned, but they're not afraid. Why? It's because many in this movement still think in small and provincial-minded terms. Despite the glaringly obvious fact that the DNC will not allow the people to dictate who runs the White House and the DNC, many of us still think that writing in Bernie in the general election will force them to take notice. If you haven't figured it out yet, they've already noticed us in a big way. The problem is they don't care. Need proof? Look at this clip from the Nevada caucus.
All those opposed say no.
Seriously, does this strike you as a party that will bend to the will of the people just because you voted for the person that they refuse to accept? If they've gone to the lengths that they have to undermine Bernie during the primary, despite polls showing that he has better odds against Trump than Clinton does, why would you think they would change their minds during the general election? Remember, this is a political revolt which goes against everything that they stand for, which is a concentration of power and of wealth. This is not about following one name and one name only. Most historic movements require more than one person at its head. They also take planning. The best plans are in place long before Plan A blows up. I'm not saying don't back Bernie through the primary. Rather, continue to back him. But plan for what we should do in the general election to move the revolution forward. Say what you will about the Tea Party. One thing that they got absolutely right was when they turned their numbers and they turned their platform into political capital. We should do the same. If we are to succeed in this enterprise, we need to stop kidding ourselves and at least accept that reform likely won't come through the DNC and RNC as they're currently constituted. We need to either back an existing third-party candidate, choose one within our numbers to be our representative and back that person, or we need to focus on congressional and local candidates to change the makeup of the party. For those of us that think that this is untenable, consider this. Bernie Sanders was considered to be a fringe candidate from day one and didn't have much money or notoriety from most of the public. It wasn't until average working people like ourselves started committing our money and our time to his campaign that made him a threat. And more than anything, it was his message, it was his platform that made people gravitate to him. Even Republicans that typically would not vote Democrat said to themselves, you know what? I can get behind this guy because he understands where I'm coming from. So what lesson should we have learned from that? The first lesson we should have learned is that if you have the right message, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit on. It will appeal to you if you're working class. Second, large numbers of small donors can outspend small numbers of large donors. So if we can unify behind an independent candidate, we would do the exact same thing. We would make that party or individual viable in the general election. Plus, our numbers and our backing could get honest people into Congress and into state office that could change the party. Whatever direction we take, we should do it together, as our numbers give us an opportunity to become a force in politics. If we're not unified and committed in putting ourselves in a position to force elites to reform, then all of this effort is for nothing. All of the singing, protesting, and drum beating in the world won't do much if we're only willing to accept half measures. We need to stop being afraid to do things that are risky or things that are outside of the norm. Now is the time to decide what we will do while we're all actively engaged. The last day after the dust has settled and people have disengaged is too late. So what's it gonna be?
You know, it's funny, I was thinking about what you said. The preeminent truth of our age is that you cannot fight the system. But if, as you say, the truth is fluid, that the truth is subjective, then maybe you can fight the system. As long as just one person refuses to be broken, refuses to bow down.
But can you win?
Every time I say no.